Let's read what the great author Mark Twain said about ants. People have quoted what he said in everywhere, but I'm not so sure whether that's what he said. So let's read his article entitled Ants. It seems to me that in the matter of intellect, the ant must be a strangely overrated bird. During the many summers now I have watched him, when I ought to have been in better business, and I have not yet come across a living ant that seemed to have any more sense than a dead one. I refer to the ordinary ant, of course. I have no experience of those wonderful Swiss and African ones which vote, keep drilled armies, hold slaves, and dispute about religion. Those particular ants may be all that the naturalist paints them, but I am persuaded that the average ant is a sham. I admit his industry, of course. He is the hardest working creature in the world when anybody is looking, but his leather-headedness is the point I make against him. He goes out foraging. He makes a capture, and then what does he do? Go home? No, he goes anywhere but home. He doesn't know where home is. His home may be only 3 feet away. No matter, he cannot find it. He makes his capture, as I have said. It is generally something which can be of no sort of use to himself or anybody else. It is usually 7 times bigger than it ought to be. He hunts out the awkwardness place to take hold of it. He lifts it bodily up in the air by main force, and starts, not toward home, but in the opposite direction, not calmly and wisely, but with a frantic haste which is wasteful of his strength. He fetches up against a pebble, and instead of going around it, he climbs over it backwards, dragging his booty after him, tumbles down on the other side, jumps up in a passion, kicks the dust off his clothes, moistures his hands, grabs his property viciously, yanks it this way then that, showers it ahead of him a moment, turns tail and larks it after him another moment, gets madder and madder, then presently hoists into the air and goes tearing away in an entirely new direction. Comes to a weed, it never occurs to him to go around it. No, he must climb it, and he does climb it, dragging his worthless property to the top, which is as bright a thing to do as it would be for me to carry a sack of flour from Heidelberg to Paris by way of Strasbourg steeple. When he gets up there, he finds that that's not the place, takes a cursory glance at the scenery, and either climbs down again or tumbles down, and starts off once more, as usual, in a new direction. In the parlance of my friend Lao Bai, who is a mathematician, that's called a random walk. But anyway, at the end of half an hour, he fetched up within 6 inches of the place. He started from and lays his burden down. Meantime, he has been over all the ground for 2 yards around, and climbed all the weeds and the pebbles he came across. Now he wipes the sweat from his brow, strokes his limbs, and then marches aimlessly off in as violent as hurry as ever. He traverses a good deal of zigzag country, and by stumbles on this same booty again. He does not remember to have ever seen it before. He looks around to see which is not the way home, grabs his bundle, and starts. He goes through the same adventures he had before, finally stops to rest, and a friend comes along. Evidently, the friend remarks that a last year's grasshopper leg is a very noble acquisition, and inquires where he got it. Evidently, the perpetrator does not remember exactly where he did get it, but thinks he got it around here somewhere. Evidently, the friend contracts to help him freight it home. Then, with a judgment peculiarly antique, they take hold of opposite ends of the grasshopper leg and begin to tug with all their might in opposite directions. Presently, they take a rest and confer together. They decide that something is wrong. They cannot make out what. Then they go at it again, just as before. Same result. Mutual recriminations follow. Evidently, each accuses the other of being an obstructionist. They warm up, and the dispute ends in a fight. They lock themselves together and chew each other's jaws for a while. Then they roll and tumble on the ground till one loses a horn or a leg and has to haul off for repairs. They make up and go to work again in the same old insane way. But the crippled end is at a disadvantage. Tug as he may, the other one drags off the booty, and him, at the end of it, instead of giving up, he hangs on and gets his shins bruised against every obstruction that comes in the way. By and by, when that grasshopper leg has been dragged all over the same old ground once more, it is finally dumped at about the spot where it originally lay. The two purse-bearing ends inspect it thoughtfully and decide that the dried grasshopper legs are a poor sort of property after all, and then each starts off in a different direction to see if he can't find an old nail or something else that is heavy enough to afford entertainment, and at the same time valueless enough to make an ant want to own it. There in the black forest on the mountainside, I saw an ant go through with such a performance as this with a dead spider of fully 10 times his own weight. The spider was not quite dead, but too far gone to resist. He had a round body, the size of a pea. The little ant, observing that I was noticing, turned him on his back, sunk his fangs into his throat, lifted him into the air, and started vigorously off with him, stumbling over little pebbles, stepping on the spider's legs, and tripping himself up, dragging him backwards, shoving him bodily ahead, dragging him backwards, shoving him bodily ahead, dragging him up stones 6 inches high instead of going around them, climbing weeds 20 times his own height and jumping from their summits, and finally leaving him in the middle of the road to be confiscated by any other fool of an ant that wanted him. I measured the ground which this ass traversed, and arrived at the conclusion that what he had accomplished inside of 20 minutes would constitute some such job as this, relatively speaking, for a man to wait to try to strap 2 800-pound horses together, carry them 1,800 feet, mainly over not around boulders, averaging 6 feet high, and in the course of the journey climb up and jumping from the top of one precipice like a Niagara, and 3 steeples, each 120 feet high, and then put the horses down in an exposed place without anybody to watch them, and then go off to indulge in some other idiotic miracle for vanity's sake. Science has recently discovered that the ant does not lay up anything for winter use. This will knock him out of literature to some extent. It does not work except when people are looking, and only then when the observer has a green, naturalistic look and seems to be taking notes. This amounts to deception and will injure him for the Sunday schools. He has not judgment enough to know what is good to eat from what isn't. This amounts to ignorance and will impair the world's respect for him. He cannot stroll around the stump and find his way home again. This amounts to idiocy, and once the damaging fact is established, thoughtful people will cease to look up to him. The sentimental will cease to fondle him. His wanted industry is but a vanity and of no effect. Since he never gets home with anything he starts with, this disposes of the last remnant of his reputation and wholly destroys his main usefulness as a moral agent, since it will make the sluggard hesitate to go to him any more. It is strange beyond comprehension that so manifested a humbug as the ant has been able to fool so many nations and keep it up so many ages without being found out. A trump abroad. And the several principles and mechanisms involved in the reconstruction of an ant are as follows. That is a good ant. An ant that is made right. First, the antennae, so called because they are part of the ant. Butterflies have an antennae too, but that's a plagiarism. Next, the legs, 6 in number, 1 on each corner and 2 in the middle. They are not at all needed for general business. Some are to get home on when the others have been chewed off. Ants are always chewing each other's legs off in arranging details connected with politics and theology. Mark Twain's notebook. That's the end of this reading, but I didn't see the quote I was told. That is, if you put red ants and black ants in a jar, if you don't do anything, then nothing would happen. But if you shake the jar, then they begin to fight each other. They feel it is the other who is doing bad things to them. They fight, they kill each other, but they don't know who shook the jar. I didn't get that part. I don't know whether that's said by Mark Twain or not. Okay, that's the end of this reading.